Aloha friends! In our last video, you have seen us just starting to pour our foundation for our home. And today we're sitting here in front of our living room window. And we wanted to give you an update, especially for those of you who have been following our journey here in the country, in Hawaii. And we wanted to let you know what we've been through and how is it going.
So in about a week from now, it will mark 5 years from the time that we evacuated our home due to the lava emergency and eventually lost that home 90 days later. And we are in the recovery process.
Yes.
We never expected that it would have taken this long,
and
or
was
been
this hard.
this hard. Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. So we'll share with you a few things that, as she said, that we've been experiencing, with the hope that somehow it will be a help or a blessing to you.
Yes, and just a note, we've been having a very hard time making this video because we have been in so much turmoil and have been just extremely busy, and we didn't have time or we didn't feel like sharing this with anybody. So,
Well, like I said, pretty much the channel's focus has been about encouraging others who are trying to launch out and start their own country living journey or experience.
yeah.
And so it's been with the thought of trying to be encouraging and uplifting.
Yeah.
And our experience in recent months has been anything but encouraging or uplifting. And so every time we thought about a video, it was hard to imagine like how is this going to go, because really our experience has been more discouraging.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to do is to discourage you from country living. So, but anyway, let's kind of just go through some of the things from the foundation to now, which is right now we have a house that looks almost finished on the outside. So we're about halfway through, I would say.
Yeah. It's taken us 6 months at this point.
And it was supposed to take us 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 6 weeks to this point, and it's taken us 6 months. One thing I would like to say that comes to mind is that I've come to believe, like previously I kind of viewed country living as sort of a destination, where you, but the reality is in my new revised view is that country living is sort of an experience that God means to change us and to transform us through that experience. And so I guess the point is that we should expect hardship in that experience.
A lot of times we would say God is not only building this house with us, but He is building us while building this house.
So humanly speaking, just looking through the lens of, just from merely a temporal perspective, I would say that has this whole 5 years been worth it? No, it's absolutely not been worth it. It's been, terribly difficult, terribly disappointing, extraordinarily, we've been very difficult and hardworking. But we, as Christians, we look through things through a different lens, or at least we should.
Yeah.
And so we're praying our way through this experience and asking God how we should respond to a lot of difficult situations that we've encountered. And so I guess a lot of things at first glance look not worthwhile. Like, for example, I would say if somebody were to just ask me, hey, would it be worth it to come here and do what you've done and start from the scratch and ground up? My knee-jerk reaction would be to say absolutely not. Now, what I would say is just go buy something already done.
Yeah.
That things have gotten really different. And I mean, what I mean is the world has changed a lot since COVID in the last 3 years, and since the lava here locally. The point is that it's more difficult than ever. Materials are more difficult than ever. Finding construction labor that is qualified is more difficult than ever. Costs are absolutely astronomical. So there are a lot of challenges besetting you here locally, and I would say that probably for people in a lot of places.
Yeah, but I would say that, of course we would not recommend this, but God may have a different plan for you, just like He had for us. And, we, maybe would have chosen a different path. Well, I'm sure we would have chosen a different path. But we have no choice now because we have this land. We already started growing everything, and the only choice is to build.
Yeah, the only way forward. It's kind of like that famous statement, I believe it was by Winston Churchill, that said, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
In other words, there's no option when you're having a hard time to just like, let's stop and stay right here. No, you just got to like step on the gas and like push through until the end and to the other side. And that's what we're doing our best to do. Occasionally we run into so much difficulties with these various professionals and that are working that we're just like, hey, let's just like stop and take a little bit of time because it's, you got to prepare yourself and rest up for the next battle. I mean, I just mean there's a lot of sloppy work going on here in East Hawaii. And if you talk to contractors and builders when you're trying to interview and hire them and evaluate their estimates, if you ask them about anything, they'll tell you, on average, that they could build a skyscraper blindfolded with one hand tied behind their back, and they don't even need building plans. They could just do it from memory. That's kind of our experience with builders. And then you find that they can't even hold a saw straight. They don't know what's level. I mean, it's just like, you feel like crying yourself to sleep some nights when you come after work and see what people have done to your property while you were away.
Yeah, that was quite an introduction.
Yeah, sometimes we have to smile and laugh because otherwise the only other option is to cry.
Yeah.
But yeah, our experience here has been really something.
Yeah.
And this is our second home we've built here in Hawaii, and the first home went so smooth compared to this. We had a home.
And we said at the end, we don't want to do this ever again.
And yet it was unpleasant enough that we said we didn't want to do it again. Of course, we didn't plan on the lava, bulldozing our house. But when we looked around, after the lava, and we looked at what homes were available and the costs, we said to ourselves, well, rather than buy one of these homes that, we might inherit some problems and they'd be extraordinarily expensive,
right.
We thought, we could build our own home, we could make it the way we want it, it could be brand new, so we know there's not termites or other issues. So we took the path that made the best sense at the time, prayerfully, which was to buy raw land. But of course, nobody was anticipating COVID, the world changing. Just for example, materials. Materials have been a nightmare for building this because, we're, of course, thousands of miles away from manufacturers. All this purchasing was taking place during COVID. You buy windows, they take 5 months to get here. Mm-hmm. The windows come, they're all beat up, broken. Then you order them again, then you got to wait months. Then you order doors, so then you wait 5 months for the door, and then you take a quick look at it, and it looks fine, you put it aside. Then you wait months more for permits and builders and everything, and then you get the door in, and then the door is like, this thing was manufactured wrong. Yeah. So now we got a door all installed. And you're just like, okay, well, now we got to order another door, wait 3 more months. The last door was ordered a year ago. It's like, oh my goodness. This is just the beginning. This is the same thing with doors and windows and
roofing comes all scratched up, yeah.
And everything people are charging outrageous prices for, and it's all coming looking like it's secondhand. And you're just like,
what happened to the world?
What happened to the world? You know what I mean? Like, why am I building a house that's looking? It doesn't even look new. You know what I mean? It's like, and of course I'm particular, and I expect that if I'm paying hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for stuff, that it ought to actually look like it just came out of the factory. But so there's a lot of stress and concerns, and then of course you got people building stuff and they're beating it all up, and nobody seems to care.
Yeah, well, this is kind of in general, but now let us tell you what actually happened step by step, right?
Yeah.
So last time you saw us, we didn't even pour the foundation yet. The foundation went pretty good, I would say, right? Everything went well. It was nice and smooth, and everything was right. And then we were excited. In a couple of weeks from then, this company, that we had a contract with, was going to bring our house from foundation to, roofing, siding, doors, windows, everything on the outside would look pretty much done. Like it looks.
It was like a dry-in.
Almost like what it looks like right now, in 6 weeks. And we started working with them, and they lasted 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours. It started raining. They went home early for the day.
And they cut up a bunch of very important beams.
Yeah.
And they cut them wrong. And then instead of telling us what went wrong, when we found out, we confronted them, and they just said, "Nope, we're not going to work with you." And they got a loophole and got out of the contract.
Basically, when I came home after work and I, looked at the beams, thought something didn't look right, whatever. Initially, I saw one beam that seemed wrong. Later, I found that there were two more. But when I checked with the architect, it was like, no, those need to be as they are written in the plan. Those need to, like, you can't cut the beam an extra 2 feet short and whatever. And so what I anticipated is that I would just communicate with the owner of the contracting company, and that they would make it right.
Yeah, we were going to buy a brand new beam for them to cut it again the right way.
And but rather they decided to just bail on us with, of course, I think it was like $12,000 in deposit.
Yeah, thankfully we got the money back, but
we did eventually get the money back.
But now we're like, we have to find somebody to do this.
So we had spent like a couple months getting everything ready to meet their schedule. Like I was working like a dog trying to coordinate everything for them, like making sure that the truss company can make the trusses at this point, and make sure that the crane can come at this time, and make sure that the roofing can be ready at this time. And so when these guys just like bailed, I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, the trusses are coming, the roofing is coming, this is coming. And they didn't care a lick. They had no care in the world that they had just, basically messed us up in a big way.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was terrible. And so that put a lot of stress on us. We were in the rainy season, which is, pretty wet here. And we were concerned about, okay, are these trusses going to go bad because they're sitting out in the weather and this and that and this and that. And, we needed a crane not only to put them up, but we needed a crane to lift them off the truck, which we didn't have. And so we just went into prayer, asking God to help us to find somebody who could take over these other guys, because we had waited months for these other guys. And
we seem to have a providence.
We seem to have a providence, which in the end turned out to be more like a curse.
But maybe it wasn't God's plan. Hey.
Yeah, there's some things that you just wonder, like,
you just don't
what
know.
Happened here? You know what I mean? Like, we operated with the best information that we had, and why did it go so bad? So, for example, Marina had met somebody. He had been recommended to us by another smaller building supply company. We had called him through the summer, months before, but we never were able to reach him. It turned out that he was like gone for a while, and he had some phone issues or whatever. So Marina said, hey, why don't you try call that guy again? And I didn't think I was going to reach him, because I'd already called him like a dozen times over the summer and never reached him. So I tried. And we reached him, and he was like, hey, I have an opening in my schedule. I could potentially like start like next week. And we're just like,
whoa.
Which is like unheard of around here, because people are like, oh, we can maybe build you a house in a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah. And
well,
he's
anyway.
so easygoing. He's just so friendly. He's like, I'm going to be friends with you and everything. And
so this guy did something that I've never seen a contractor do, and I really appreciated it. He was like, hey, if you have time, like, I'll meet you after work. I'll come to your house site. We'll like figure it out. And then if you have time, I have like 5 other guys I built houses for right around here. Like, why don't we just jump in the car and we'll go like see them? Yeah. And I thought, wow, that sounds great. So we went into these people's houses, and
everybody was happy.
Everybody's happy, and they were like, oh, yeah, this guy's great, and we recommend him. And so that was nice, because it wasn't just like some name on a piece of paper. It was like we went to their places, we met these people.
And we didn't have to do contract with him. He said, just pay me by hourly, and we'll just, we can stop at any time.
And since we had just gotten burned, despite the fact that we had this big contract and everything, we thought, okay, that sounds good. We could sort of test drive the situation. And anyway, so the guy started, and boy, he was a nice guy. I'll put it that way. But he was sloppy as it comes.
He wasn't working by himself. He had a couple of people who I feel like they weren't as good as he was. And he a lot of times had to be away from the site, so...
Well, that's not the way I feel.
Okay.
This guy was the boss. He was in charge. He was here. He saw what these guys were doing. He didn't manage his guys properly.
Yeah.
And they were just tearing things up. And I would come and just be like, what is going on here? And so I'd talk with him, and we would talk. I'm trying to be like calm and respectful to everybody. And it's just like, okay, we'll fix that. We'll fix that.
Yeah, that was one thing good about them. They would apologize, and they would be willing to fix it.
But they were the kind of guys that were like, everything was measured wrong, everything was off.
Yeah.
Well, let me just give you an example. I have most of the closets in this house have been built now 5 times.
Yeah.
I have one closet that's been built 6 times. And I paid for every single time that was built. And that's just kind of indicative of the kind of work that was being done. I'd come and be like, why is this closet not to the plan?
Yeah, and
why
we
is this?
Write everything on the wall, this by this, like...
It's still not right.
No.
Like almost everything is wrong. Like when they came to put up, when they framed and then they put up like the sheathing, it seemed like there were at least as many nails just right through into nothing than there were in the studs.
Yeah,
and I come and I'm like, why are there like 600 nails sticking out of the wall? Like,
and then they put the Tyvek on the inside of the house.
Yeah, that should have been like the last
straw.
But, and not only that, but it wasn't even straight. It was like all bunched up and it was just like, what is going on here? And they were like, oh yeah, that's how we do it here. And I'm like, you could put it on the inside or the outside. So I'm like, every day I'm calling manufacturers like Tyvek, and I'm like, they're telling me this is like an appropriate way. And they're like, absolutely not. What are they thinking? So
so one night or one evening, Ryan comes home from work, and usually he stops by here before he gets to work, and he's like, I think you got to see this, Marina. So he goes and gets me, and then we come here, and we literally sit down in the middle of the living room, and well, at least I cried, because the house looked butchered. Like the way they cut the plywood, the way the nails, the way the whole thing was just, everything just looked like a shed.
Yeah, and I told the guy, and
Yeah, and he was nice. He did come and apologize to me personally, and he was like, they were trying to fix it.
I told him that if I personally was building a doghouse, which my skill level, that's about the most I would attempt, right? I said, if I was building a doghouse and it looked like this, I would burn the thing to the ground, and I would start over. Yeah. But I don't have that luxury, because you just basically destroyed and damaged about $50,000 to $60,000 in my materials.
Yeah.
And so, now we got to try to fix this.
Right. So then next, we have a guy coming for to give us a quote on roofing. He was not going to do anything in the house, but somehow he decided to, come and take a peek inside the house. And here it starts. He tells us, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is terrible, it has to be redone. Like, he's a contractor himself, too.
So at that point, previously the guy who was doing this sloppy work, he was always explaining to me why, and he was going to fix this and that, and and he was always talking calmly, kind of rationalizing all the crazy stuff he had been doing. And unfortunately, I was more patient than I should be, which it's not my nature to be patient, to be honest.
We tried.
But we certainly tried. I mean, we were praying, I would say praying our guts out to be to have the patience of the saints, you know what I mean? While somebody was destroying our future. So at that point, anyway, when this person came through and they were like, no, this is absolutely terrible, we thought, all right, we better put a hold on things, and we better bring in some other contractors, get some second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion.
Yeah.
And finally somebody said, well, everybody basically said this is terrible. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, well, why don't we just bring in an authority? And so I called up the building inspector, who wasn't scheduled to be here for some time into the future. But I just said, hey, here's the situation here. I don't know much about building, and I sure would appreciate it if you could come out and tell me.
Is this okay? Do we need to take it all apart?
And fortunately, I mean, in one sense, he told us, well, It's not as bad as some of those guys had told you, but, you know, I certainly wouldn't use these guys anymore, and you know, you're going to need to spend a lot of money fixing stuff. And so he went away. We severed our relationship with that guy, and, you know, we requested new guys to come and help us, who were outrageously priced, but they did help us fix a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so we spent a lot of money fixing stuff as best we could. And
well, something I remember also is that while these guys were working, it was like amazing weather. It was sunny, and we were like so hopeful that they're gonna put the roof on on top of the walls, and that we're gonna get it out of the weather before the bad weather comes. It was like a little bit of a drought, like maybe a few weeks. And when they left, we actually ended up with trusses not finished, so we just have everything open to the elements. And the bad weather came, and it was really bad for like, it was raining straight for like at least a month, you know, just either drizzle or rain. And we literally, Ryan, every time after work, instead of coming home and spending time with his family, he would come in this home and shove the water away from the plywood that's already on the walls, away from all the wood that's just gonna rot.
Yeah, so what happened is that for a period of weeks after we had to fire these guys and nothing was happening, because of course other guys that we were gonna hire to fix stuff, you know, they have other stuff going.
Yeah.
So, and the bad weather came, so basically these guys had put plywood all over, because there's brace walls for like hurricane winds and everything. So there's plywood on the inside, there's plywood on the outside, and all this rain was like seemed like it was like inches per day in the house.
And it was just soaking it up.
It was soaking it up. Plywood was starting to get damaged, getting distorted. I had to get these massive brooms and squeegees, and so like after, you know, a hard day at the hospital, I got to come here and spend an hour and a half to 2 hours squeegeeing out the whole house, and then come back the next day, and it's the exact same thing. The whole thing, everything's soaked in water, everything.
It was very discouraging. I mean, if you didn't get that point yet.
Yeah. So it was a disaster. Thankfully, we did get those guys. Yes, we did pay them way too much, the rescue crew.
They definitely helped us out.
But
they were also Christians, which helped.
Yeah.
And we kind of knew them from previous engagements.
So anyway, they basically got us out of the weather. It took way longer than it should have. It cost way more than it should have for them to do their thing. You know, thankfully they were competent. They had to remove and replace some trusses because of the sloppiness with which the layout was done by the other guys. I mean, I don't understand. You know, we did our best due diligence. So many people recommended this guy. People told us he did high-end homes here in the area. How could it have gone this bad? I don't have any clue.
We keep thinking, I mean, is this some kind of curse? Or like, you know, we're going back and thinking, are we doing something wrong? What's happening? I mean, it's one thing, you know, this thing gets wrong and then the other thing is okay. But it's like almost every single time we hire somebody, it's in one shape or form, it will go wrong.
Yeah. We've been praying about that, you know.
Yeah.
But we know for sure that that God wants our family in the country. We know that the effort that we're involved in here is right for us.
Yeah, we know that this is the location where He wants us to be.
We just not sure why it's so hard.
Yeah, so we took about 2 weeks off, just kind of, I don't know if we were procrastinating or we were just trying to save ourselves the stress because it was just too much. We knew we needed to, you know, have the roofer come and do it, but we were just kind of like, let's just take a little break.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks, no work was happening here whatsoever. And then we hired the roofers, right?
Yeah, so the roofing thing was really, really weird. I mean, everything has been really weird. So we tried to get bids from like 6 roofing companies, all licensed professional roofers and this and that. And only 2 were willing to give us bids. I mean, the other ones were just like, yeah, we'll get to it. And it's like months. I'm talking about like 3-4 months probably go by and like nobody's given you even a bid. But anyway, so we got 2 estimates. we wanted to go with this one company because we had more confidence in them. And then
they didn't want to
do it.
Yeah.
They were like, well, we do it all this way,
yeah.
but it's not even the way the manufacturer
a certain type
suggests.
Of roofing, yeah.
And it's like, well, we want it this way, which is the way that it's professionally done. And they're like, no, we don't want to do it. And it's like, okay. I think it was more labor, and they didn't want to do the extra work. So then it was like, okay, well, I only got this other guy who's licensed.
And I think that was kind of the theme. It's like we always felt like we only have one choice of a roofer or, carpenter. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of like choices. Like, oh, let's fire this guy and get some, the other guys are eager standing at the door. Like, no, there's nobody standing at the door.
So we hired this other guy who's licensed, and he'd been doing it like 40 years, and he's right here on the island, and he knows all kinds of everything and everybody. And so we thought, all right, well, at least he's professional, has lots of experience. Well, no. He did the work, charged a fortune, and
took us a long time.
I don't understand how people operate this way, but he would come like, there were days where he'd come like 2 hours, and he'd be like, oh, it's kind of drizzly. I think I'm going to go home and try to come back tomorrow. And we're like, what? So that's what he'd do. And of course, it clears up. I mean, here in Hawaii, the weather changes all the time. And like, it's drizzly for like half an hour, and then it's sunny again.
Or less.
And so oftentimes when he'd quit and go home, it'd be like, he'd like be just 5-10 minutes down the street, and I'd call him and be like, hey, it's sunny. The rain stopped. And he'd be like, oh, I think I'll just stay going home, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to take a nap. Guys would work on a sunny day, fully sunny. They'd work 6 hours was like the record.
The max, yeah. Well, he was an older gentleman, but still.
I mean, anyway, the thing was the guy wasn't even on the roof. It's just the helper was on the roof, Yeah. But anyway, so they dragged something that the other company would have done. The other company told me, hey, a day and a half, 2 days, we got this whole thing done.
Yeah.
These guys dragged it out over 3 weeks, okay? And it was like you got to keep, like, trying to persuade them to, like, stay or persuade them to, and...
Yeah. And overall, it turned out looking, pretty good, I'd say. But there are, if you don't know the details of it, you'll be like, wow, it's wonderful.
Yeah. But if you... I don't know.
If you're the owner.
If you're the owner, and you're like, hey, why is it not like this? And the guy said, well, you didn't ask for that. That's the industry standard. That's the only way this roof is done. And it's like, oh, I did this and saved $300 in material. Well, I would have rather paid the $300 in material and had it done professionally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's unbelievable.
So next, we had one of the carpenters, who were the good carpenters, came back, and he helped us to build a shed, which we needed. Part of the shed was going to be for a pump house, to house the pump and the pressure tank and filters for the water supply. And then the other side was going to be our storage. Since we're not building the garage just yet, we would need a lot of storage to put some of our stuff away. And that turned out really nice.
The shed is much nicer
built than the
house.
Like framing-wise?
As far as framing.
Framing-wise, for sure.
I can walk in the shed and I can say, like, I have peace with this. Like, everything's straight and...
So here we are thinking everything is, starting to look good. And then the carpenter one morning, while Ryan is at work, calls him and says, hey, have you seen your septic tank? Now, we have buried the septic tank before we even did the foundation. I think you saw it in the last video with the excavator. That was how many months ago? Like 5?
That was like 5 to 6 months ago.
And Ryan says, what do you mean? And so the
septic tank is like out of the ground. And I'm like, what do you mean it's out of the ground?
He sends the picture, and septic tank literally resurrected. We didn't know it was even possible.
Yeah.
So here we are Googling septic tanks coming out of the ground. I mean, it looked creepy, to say the least, but also like, what do we do now?
Yeah. So I contacted the guy who installed it, which of course was a licensed professional with 50 years of installing septic tanks. They came out, thankfully, that day, took a look at it, told me they'd be back in a few days to fix it. Didn't come back for 2 weeks until I pestered them. And
because we had plumbers that were scheduled to come, and we needed that to be fixed for them to plumb into it.
Anyway, we had a little bit of difficulty getting them back in time, but they came back. They reinstalled it. I got a picture. We weren't here at the time, but we got a picture, And we were like, oh,
Yeah,
sigh of
sigh of
relief.
relief.
Like the septic tank is back under the earth where it belongs. And then 2 days later,
No, the next day,
I come here and I'm like, the septic tank's out of the ground again.
worse than before.
Oh my goodness.
We had a hard rain that last night, the night before, and yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, so this time I'm working with the septic engineer and the septic, and all these guys charge you outrageous amounts of money, and it's like, and they can't even keep the thing under the ground, and we haven't even moved in here yet. So the plumber said that he's thankful that he hadn't connected to it, because if he had, it would have, when this thing pulls up, it pulls up the pipes, and then the pipes would have been like out of the right level, and then if you had that situation while you're living here, then all your plumbing for the house won't drain, and it's all backed up inside the house, and it would just be a disaster. So now we need to figure out, the septic engineer thinks we need to re-dig the thing, then put it in, then put some kind of special anchors with some kind of concrete footing or something, and I don't have any idea what that's going to cost, but but it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, so last week, Ryan took most of the week off because we scheduled a plumber to come. We scheduled him, 5 weeks ahead?
5 weeks in advance we scheduled this plumber. We confirmed the plumber. We got everything that he wanted. He had an extensive list of things he wanted for us.
Yeah, and the reason we wanted to be here, because, every time we're not here, something goes wrong. So we want to, hold their hand, look over what they're doing.
All these guys have turned out to really need some babysitting.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're actually following the plan, they're actually doing things they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So the plumber was supposed to come, and the night before?
Yeah, close to 9 p.m., they wrote and canceled. And they said, oh, we'll come in another 10 days. And it's like, what do you mean? You know how hard it is to take time off from working at the hospital? I took the time off, you scheduled this with me, you confirmed, and now you're like, oh, I'm going to put some other project first. And it's like, what?
You could have at least told us ahead so we can, change our plans as well.
So, yeah. So then it took another 5 to 6 days to get them to come and see us here.
Just for consultation.
For a consultation.
Which was nice. So, we thought the problems would end with the plumber, huh? But then we had
we had hoped that was the worst of our vacation week. But
we had a scheduled appointment with a tile guy who was going to prepare for the tile. We have a shower in one bathroom and the bathtub in another bathroom when we needed to do, custom tile in the shower, obviously, and some floor tiles. And so here we come, and
yeah, so we had some good references on this guy.
Yeah, very good. And he himself just says, I'll build you the moon. I've been working with, this and that. And
so we had heard that the guy actually did really good work. And our architect had used him and just finished a new custom home. And, so
but
we
maybe
thought...
it was just a curse. It happened that when he came to our place...
he was clearly impaired.
He was having the worst day of his life.
It appears, I don't know, we didn't drug test him, but if I had to guess, he probably was...
on something.
On something. At least he was severely intoxicated, if not something more.
Yeah, he told us the night before he had something, but...
He told us he had drunk a lot the night before. He told us... He was having marriage and family problems.
Yeah, and he needed somebody to talk to.
And so we, I did tell him... Because, of course, he didn't give us notice of any of this. He was just here doing all this work while he was finally letting us know all this. And we just said, hey, why don't you just take the day off, man? Why don't you just go solve these things? Yeah. I know you committed to be here today, but but anyway,
okay.
So he refused to go home because he said he didn't want to be around his family due to these family concerns. And so basically we were like counselors. Yeah. Because he wanted to talk over and over and over again about all of his problems, and
he was kind of talking to himself in a very aggressive manner, which we were like, what's happening? And we were really nice to him. We tried to listen, and I think Ryan gave him a hug and said, hey, and talked to him. We're gonna pray for you and everything. And it just, as the hours went by, I think things got worse and worse. Like you look in his eyes, he's just like red eyes, like just. Like he's not, like he doesn't know what he's doing, and yet he is building us little
A custom shower.
custom shower with some custom soap trays and
doing cement
putting
work
a drain and it's just
so everything ended up being a disaster. But I mean, in the end, I was the one who was like, I'm of course realize I'm paying this gentleman hundreds of dollars per hour, and I'm the one like holding his saw for him because he can't hold his hand steady. I'm just like, look, man, let's just stop for the day. But he was in such turmoil and distress that we didn't feel like, I mean, I could suggest things to him, but it didn't seem safe even to to go against him.
Yeah, to welcome him out of the property.
To be like, look, man, you got to go. Because to be honest, I was kind of thinking like, he seemed like the kind of person who could go home and like hurt somebody or commit suicide so we were just trying to help him through his day. But in the end, when the plumber came back and, well, of course we saw with our own eyes. We saw with our own eyes that
things weren't straight.
Yeah, we first thought it was 3 out of the 5 things he was doing that day needed totally be taken apart and redone. But then when the plumber came and saw the drain, he's like, no way, this thing is not even centered in the shower. This thing is not, it's not even level. It's not even going to drain. Your shower's not even going to drain.
Yeah.
And so he's like, the plumber's like, now I got to come with a jackhammer, bust out this thing out of the concrete. And so I realized, okay, so now at least 4 of the 5 things that the guy did. So, of course, the guy's got many thousands of our dollars as a down payment on the tile work. And
and we signed a contract with him.
So, so now we got to figure out our new dilemma.
Yeah, we're in the middle of this actually. We don't.
We have to communicate to him that we just can't,
Despite
the fact that we are very sympathetic and we wish him all the best, we can't have him destroy the house. And while he's going through all this.
Yeah, while we're paying, a fortune.
Because we're paying him a fortune, then we got to pay somebody else a fortune behind him to come redo everything. And
I feel like at this point we could have built 2 houses.
Yeah.
With the amount of money we just put into it. It's like, it's
so it's tragic. It's really tragic. How could so many things go wrong?
Yeah. Well,
so it seems almost supernatural. That
whether it is God's allowing this for a reason or, well, He is allowing it obviously, but
or whether it's Satan trying to destroy us. When we go back to like the whole lava disaster, our home survived. I think it was 91 days of lava eruption. I mean, there was lava running by our house.
There was no reason for it to be covered whatsoever.
And the thing is it only got bulldozed by the lava in the final hours of the flow, right as the lava turned off.
Yeah. At
the very end. And we just thought, how could it be that you could survive 90-something days with rivers of lava flowing by your property, and only in the last hours the lava takes a turn and just, bam, wipes out everything.
Not to mention, we had so much providence of it being saved when the lava was spilling out into that area. Like at least 2 times we thought our house was gone during those 3 months. And, God saved it once. He saved it twice, and we thought, well, surely, God would not take our property home that He told us to build. And let us there.
So in essence, we do believe in evil. We do believe in satanic agencies and spirits. And I will tell you that, honestly, throughout this experience of building, we have gotten so busy. I mean, I go to work for like 9 hours, then I go and like try to figure out and buy all the materials, and then get the material deliveries, and then deal with these guys, and then deal with all the problems, and then. So the point is this: I have let my prayer life slip. In other words, I've not been praying as much as I ought to, as I had previously. It just seems like every night you collapse in bed.
Well, there's a lot of things that slipped. You know what I mean? I mean, we suffering in our relationship.
There's just not time. There's basically not time for anything but building.
Yeah.
And when you introduce all these problems, then it's not just. I mean, it's not just like, hey, let me stop by the property every day and check on things. It's like you got to figure out all these problems. You know what I mean? And you got guys that don't want to fix them, and it's
I personally have a problem with all of this, because after time and time, I feel like, do I even want to live here, like in this house, when it's all done? Is it just gonna keep happening? Like, are these
In other
bad
words,
things gonna keep
it's like a
happening?
post-traumatic stress
I know.
disorder. It's like
I'm scared already.
so. So we're working through all this, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to continue on, and we're not giving up.
Needless to say, we need your prayers. We covet your prayers. Because, yeah, and, we try to pray for you guys, who are watching us, because we know that a lot of you are in your own journey to establish your country home. And so if you remember us, yeah, say a prayer for us.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah, so now you know why we had such a hard time and such a long time making this video, because it's not an easy video to make. Because we don't want to sound negative, and
Discourage anyone.
we want to encourage and give God glory, but so far we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
We just trust against our distrust that this is God's plan, and somehow He's working on us, and somehow He has some kind of a plan for us after all of this. So.
Yeah, maybe He's changing us through the experience. I mean, we do feel like we've gotten pretty beat up in the last 5 years of trying to recover from the lava.
Yeah.
Financially and this and that, and just
this is like
it's been very hard.
the major crisis of our married life together. We this year it's going to be 18 years that we're together, married, and this is like the worst thing that ever happened to us. And I think that every couple has to go through something like that. And I'm just thankful it's not like a loss of a loved one, or or something happening with their children. God forbid. Like, we can take this.
Yeah.
As much as we don't want to take this, we'd rather it to be this than something else,
Yeah.
So we are definitely thankful, and we don't want you to think that we're just, being negative here. We tell you and document things just as they are. We don't, make it sound better or worse.
Yeah. And I suppose, if you were somehow to find the right builder, if you were more fortunate than us, your building experience here could be positive.
Yeah.
But you just got to realize that there are going to be lots and lots of supply chain issues, and lots of, challenges with materials and expenses. And but if anyone is going to attempt to build here and do it in a permitted manner, as we have, meaning you do
All the
everything
permissions,
by the book,
Yeah.
right? It's hard.
It's hard, yeah.
It's really hard, and in fact, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got other things that we'd like to build here on this property,
But we're not sure now.
but now we're not sure. We're just
not
thinking,
I think let's just build
let's
this.
just survive, like live to see the day
Survive
this
this.
like ends, and then let's take like a long break from everything, from
From
building
anything.
and then maybe someday we'll be crazy enough to try it again.
Yeah. So anyway, we hope that you found something to be encouraged about in this video, or at least you are warned if you're thinking to move to Hawaii and build something here. I don't think Hawaii is the same as it used to be, in this sense. I mean, it's just the same beautiful, but things have changed after pandemic for sure.
And something else to think about is that one of the there's certain advantages that are here in the tropics and in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But there's certain downsides,
Mm-hmm.
and our noses have been like sort of on the grindstone for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, we worked for years to get into a place financially where we could rebuild. Then you're starting this whole thing from scratch, and you're bulldozing the land, and you're putting up fencing, and you're doing all the planting fruit trees. And anyway, the point is that if you do it as we've done it, what we've accomplished from a financial standpoint and from a development standpoint is really a lot. It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
If you knew how much all this stuff costs and everything,
How much work it takes.
And how much work it takes.
That most people are not willing to put in.
It's a miracle that we have gotten this far in 5 years.
Yeah.
Considering everything.
Yeah.
Considering current pricing of everything and all this. But anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that if you work so hard that you can't do anything else but work, there's not really much point in being in a place like Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because you don't even see it, you don't even
Yeah.
know it, you don't even enjoy it. You're just working. And so so we're in some sense, trying to learn to pull back a little bit and like look up, see the rainbows, and we do have a lot of reasons why we have some sense of urgency and we're trying to get in here as soon as we can, but sometimes you just gotta stop, go a little bit slower, like take the family for a hike to a waterfall, like actually like realize like, oh yeah, we do live in Hawaii. like this is a nice place. You know what I mean? Because if all you do is like eat, sleep, work,
that's not a living.
After 5 years,
it's getting pretty old.
It gets pretty old.
So anyway, I think we better wrap up this video. Am I right?
Yeah.
And hope you guys are all doing well. Write us in the comments.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time. Aloha and God bless.